Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the 7th edition of When Words Collide. Yay! So we had a ton of fun doing these readings at the library last night. It was fabulous, so I know what you guys are heading into today. You're going to have a great time. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Stacy. I've been on the organizing committee of When Words Collide for the past 6 years. They're going to have to fire me to get rid of me. So I am a reader. I'm not a writer, I'm a reader. And it is my professional opinion as a reader that writers are magic. How else can you explain their ability to take us on journeys, to transport us to other places or planets or even dimensions, to make us feel jealousy, compassion, to make us ugly cry, to make us hate, and to make us love, all just with words. They are magic. It's the only explanation. So this afternoon, we have the pleasure of hearing these master magicians share their magic words with us. And thank you so much for coming.
Stacy said I shouldn't project. It would be embarrassing for people because I personally don't normally need a mic. If people don't know me, I'm Cliff Samuels. I am the guest liaison, finance director, and head of publication for When Words Collide. Yeah, 3 jobs. If anybody here is interested in working on When Words Collide, we would love to add you to our committee. We are always looking for fresh blood. Anyways, it is my pleasure. We had other people doing some of the introductions last night, but I'm going to be doing their introduction for Sam. So if I stumble over their words, forgive me. But Sam Hiyate is the president and founder of The Rights Factory. It's a Toronto-based literary agency that was founded in 2004 and has grown steadily and is probably the fastest growing literary agency in Canada and now represents several hundred authors in Canada, the US and UK, and around the world. Sam has an impressive CV in the publishing world. He started his career with the Canadian literary magazines Blood and Thank you, and the Quarterly in 1990s. He ran the micro-publisher Gutter Press for almost a decade, and in 2003 he joined the Lavin Agency and launched its literary division, and then stepped out and created The Rights Factory. Now, The Rights Factory is a literary agency that doesn't just wait for talent to come to it. Sam and his agents are actively searching out new talent. That's Sam's particular passion, finding new voices and bringing them to the market. So, I'd like to introduce Sam Hiyate.
I'm going to do something a little different than I did last night because it was a different group. You guys are all here for the conference, right? So you're kind of in the business or want to get in the business. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you 3 short pieces from 3 of my writers so I can show you, and hopefully it'll be entertaining. I can show you what it is about, what it was about their work that kind of got my attention. I think that might be useful for you guys if you haven't got an agent or whatever. The first one is a woman called Jennifer Close, whose first book was a New York Times bestseller. It's now sold over 200,000 copies. And what was amazing about her was I met her through one of my other writers, and she had never published anything. But she had spent a year doing a Master in Fine Arts degree in New York. And I met her at a cocktail party, and I just really liked her. And then I looked at her stories, and I said, I think you're really funny. But what I want you to listen for is how, in her writing, she's able to give you these kind of beautiful, true moments in a really original voice. So this is from her second book, which came out with Knopf a couple years ago now. It was called The Smart One. The conceit of the book is in every family, whenever there's 2 daughters, there's a smart one and a pretty one. Okay, so I'm just going to read. This is actually, I didn't bring any books because I wasn't sure I'd be reading from anything. So This is from the original manuscript from like 6 years ago. It's probably being edited, and it's probably a little bit better now. So consider this is like 90% of what was published. The events that led Claire to this job were unclear, and sometimes before she went to bed at night, she tried to trace her steps backwards and figure out how she'd gotten here, but she usually got lost. She always started with her breakup with Doug. One day, I was engaged, she'd think, and the next day he was gone. When she first met Doug, her friend Lainey said, "Doug Winklepeck is such an unfortunate name." Claire agreed, but continued to date him. On their third date, he said, "I would like to be exclusive with you, if that is what you want as well." It sounded like a business proposal, but Claire was happy to agree. Doug was straightforward with Claire like that. He was sort of handsome in his own way, and he was polite. And these were all good things, Claire told herself. On their fourth date, Doug took her to see the elephants arrive in New York for the circus. They were marched through the Queens Midtown Tunnel at midnight, and Doug said it was something she had to see. They drank Amstel Lights in a bar until it was time, and then they rushed out to the street to watch. Claire stood there, leaning against Doug, drunk from her beers and the strangeness of the night, and she watched the big, sad elephants march into Manhattan. They were wrinkled and dusty and magnificent. Claire wanted to cry for them, but also wanted to run up and touch their rough skin with her hand. She drew in a deep breath and said, "Oh, see," Doug whispered into her hair, "I told you, it's something to see." And right then, Claire felt Doug was the right choice, the person she'd been waiting for, and anytime she started to feel otherwise, she'd whisper to herself, "Remember the elephants," until the feeling went away. They moved in together, and almost 2 years to the day they started dating, he proposed. The ring he gave her was a dull silver color with a vine etched on it. All along the vine were little dots of diamonds. She hated it immediately. "I knew you wouldn't want a big, showy ring," he said. She just nodded and looked down at her hand. Of course she'd wanted a big ring. She'd always wanted a big diamond, even if she knew she was supposed to say it didn't matter. Doug made a good amount of money, so it wasn't like she looked at the ring and thought, well, he loves me and it's the most he could afford. It wasn't. He could have bought her something spectacular, but he decided to be practical. And who wanted practical for an engagement ring? They were engaged for 4 months. Claire tried to remember what it was during that time that caused them to fall apart. But the truth was, it wasn't really anything. There were no screaming fights, no cheating scandals, no admissions of past offenses. It was just that once they were engaged, they started having conversations that led them to disagree. Maybe it had always been this way, and they hadn't noticed because they weren't facing the rest of their lives together. But with the ugly vine ring on Claire's hand, these talks gained importance. "You only want 2 kids," Claire said. Doug nodded. 2 is a good number. 2 is affordable. "Yeah, but what if one of them dies? Then you only have 1 left." "What is wrong with you?" Doug had asked. "Why would you say something like that?" When Claire wanted to go to dinner, Doug said they shouldn't to save money. When Doug talked about moving to Long Island, Claire told him he was out of his mind. When Claire watched American Idol, Doug told her she was contributing to the downfall of American culture. When Doug pulled his pants high, Claire told him he was a nerd. It went on and on like this until most nights were spent in separate rooms of the apartment, watching different TV shows. Then one night, Doug came home and said, "Do you think this is working? Because I have to say I don't." Claire stayed in the apartment. The thought of finding a new place seemed impossible. So she stayed in the 1 bedroom they'd shared that she really couldn't afford. Each month, she dipped to her savings to pay the rent, telling herself that moving was expensive, and until she figured out what she wanted to do, she should stay put. So you meet a character in a state of crisis early on because she hasn't told her family yet that the engagement is off. And then you meet her mother, who's all excited about planning the wedding, and then they have to kind of come to head with that. So, by the way, I wasn't sure how much time I had, so how much time do I have? I have 2 more. I'll read a short one, and then we'll decide if you want to hear more. So that was Jennifer Close, like I said, a great writer. Her 3rd book just came out, and The Hopefuls, about living in Washington during the Obama administration. She was a joy to represent because her husband had quit his job to volunteer for Obama. He was a lawyer. He was a white lawyer. He loved Obama. He started working for him. And then he and Jennifer got moved to Washington when Obama won. And I got this funny picture of her and Obama. So when I was doing her submissions, I'm like, by the way, Jennifer has some really influential friends. And then all the editors were like, whoa, I love this picture. Can we use this? And I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think Obama's going to let you. But it was from her Facebook or something. Anyway, this is another guy who I really love. I've sold like 6 of his books. He's now translated in 17 languages. Everything that he writes is so filmic that we've optioned them everywhere. So he's actually, I think, and I don't have my statements with me, but I'm pretty sure in the last 10 years since I've repped him that we've made more money on the options. Everything that he's done is being optioned for film, and they keep being renewed, and we try to sell them to higher and higher bidders every time. And his books have never really sold well, but people keep doing them. I don't know, we're kind of lucky that way because a lot of publishers after a while will say, yeah, your last book sold 500 copies. We're sorry, we can't go back there. Okay, but you can see, I want you to see what I like about his voice. He's kind of magic realism, and this is a story called The Tiny Wife about a guy whose wife is held up at a bank, and the bank robber says, actually, I'm not here for the money, I'm here for a piece of your soul. And so this strange things start happening to them when they come back, and he tells the story of how his wife starts shrinking, and she shrinks and shrinks and shrinks, and it's a story of that. But this piece is from another one of the characters. There's one day later when things start to happen to the people who lose a piece of their soul. That same day, Jenna Jacob woke to discover that she was made of candy, an event she remained unaware of until she was in the shower and looked down and saw white film swirling to the drain. Shocked and disbelieving, Jenna turned off the tap and wiped the steam from the mirror. Her skin was made of white sugar and mint speckles. Her hair was licorice. Her eyes were caramels. The longer she stared at her reflection, the less strange this candied version of herself became. She wrapped a scarf around her licorice hair, put sunglasses over her caramel eyes, and went downstairs. Her sons, aged 10 and 13, barely noticed. When her kids wouldn't eat their breakfast, she rubbed her hands together over their cereal bowls, dusting their shreddies with sugar. When they wouldn't get dressed and into the car, she broke off her pinky fingers and used them as bribes. When she dropped them off at school, they were unusually eager to kiss her goodbye. Jenna returned home, called in sick, and spent the day watching television. Just after 9, her husband came home. Sorry I'm so late, he said. It's the Myers account again. Why is it so dark in here? Is there anything to eat? Jenna patted the cushion beside her. Her husband sat down. He kissed her candied lips. He kissed her neck and her arms and her face. They went upstairs. He kissed every part of her body. I could eat you up, he said, and lost in passion, he did. So that's just one scene from The Tiny Wife by Andrew Kaufman. You can see, I did my talk yesterday, and I said, I have really weird taste. Like, I mean, the Jennifer Close was very commercial, but anyway, so this is the story of the shrinking wife. So I can stop now, or I can read you a little bit more of another writer. What do you guys tell me? Okay, thank you. That was Andrew Kaufman, Kaufman. Thank you so much.